Wife brutally cheated, called me boring. I unleashed brutal revenge and destroyed her life. Reddit confession. Okay Reddit, I never thought I'd be posting here, especially not about this. My life just got detonated, and I need some perspective, some advice, maybe just someone to tell me I'm not completely insane for what I'm feeling and what I'm planning. My wife, Sarah, fake name, obviously, and I have been together for 12 years, married for 8. We met in college, fell hard, and built what I thought was a pretty great life. 2 kids, a nice house in the suburbs, decent jobs. The American dream, right? I always saw her as this vibrant, ambitious woman, sometimes a bit self-absorbed, yeah, but I always put it down to her drive. She was always good at getting what she wanted, whether it was a promotion or the last slice of pizza. I loved that about her, honestly, her fire. Or so I thought. Looking back, there were always little things. Her phone was practically surgically attached to her hand. She'd always disappear to take calls, or get weirdly defensive if I even glanced at it. I brushed it off, told myself she was just private, or maybe it was work stuff. She started going out more often for girls' nights, or work events, that seemed to stretch later and later. I'd ask about them, innocently, like, how was your night, honey, and I'd get these clipped, annoyed responses. Fine. You don't need a blow-by-blow, do you? Or she'd launch into a detailed but completely unprovoked story about some work drama that felt over-rehearsed. Like she was trying too hard to convince me of something. My gut kept screaming, but my brain was a master at rationalization. Stress from her job, the kids, menopause maybe, she's 38, just a phase. I tried harder to be supportive, to give her space. I'd do more around the house, pick up extra kid duties, even try to spice things up in the bedroom, which, honestly, felt like pulling teeth sometimes. She'd mostly just seem annoyed, or complain she was tired, or had a headache. It was soul-crushing, but I kept pushing through, hoping we'd get back to normal. The normal I thought we had. Then came the texts. Just fleeting glimpses over her shoulder. Always from the same number, always something innocuous like, K, or, call me later. But her reaction to me even being in the same room when those texts came through was like she'd been caught robbing a bank. She'd snatch the phone away, literally jump. And I'd still try to tell myself I was paranoid. God, I was such an idiot. A blind, trusting, idiotic fool. The real cracking point came a few weeks ago. She was out again, another work conference, she said, in a city 3 hours away. She'd even packed a small overnight bag, the usual spiel. I was home with the kids, trying to wrangle them into bed, feeling that familiar knot of loneliness and suspicion in my stomach. Around 10 p.m., her phone, which she'd somehow left behind, first, let me tell you, started buzzing on the kitchen counter. It wasn't a work call, I knew that much from the ringtone she usually reserved for me or close family. This was her other ringtone, the one she used for, well, I didn't know who. Curiosity, or maybe just a primal urge to protect myself from whatever truth was waiting, pushed me. I picked it up. It was a text. A new one, hot off the presses. From a contact simply labeled J, the message read, "Miss you already, babe. Wish I was still exploring your other office. See you tomorrow, same time, same place. My place. Don't forget the handcuffs, winky face." My blood ran cold. My stomach dropped through the floor. It wasn't just a text, it was the specific, casual intimacy of it. The other office? The handcuffs? My hand started shaking so violently I almost dropped the phone. For a second, a fleeting, desperate second, I tried to rationalize it. A joke? A friend messing around? But the context, her recent behavior, the late nights, the secrecy, it all coalesced into one horrifying, undeniable truth. I scrolled up, my fingers numb. And there it was. A whole damn novel of illicit texts, spanning months. Pictures. Oh God, the pictures. Not just suggestive texts, but explicit photos. Of her. With him. In places that looked disturbingly like hotel rooms, or even our house, a specific mirror in the master bedroom, for crying out loud. My wife. My Sarah. In positions I'd only ever seen her in with me, and often not even that. Laughing, smiling, looking utterly free and unburdened in a way she hadn't looked at me in years. He was older, balding, with a smug, self-satisfied grin. A guy from her work, judging by some of the text conversations about office gossip. The world went silent. The kids' distant chatter, the hum of the fridge, it all just faded. All I could hear was the deafening roar of betrayal in my ears. It wasn't just cheating, it was brutal, blatant, and happening right under my nose. My wife wasn't just having an affair, she was living a whole damn double life, and she was enjoying every second of it. The sheer depth of her deception, the calculated lies, the contempt, it was a punch to the gut that left me breathless. I felt like I was going to throw up. I don't remember much of that night after the discovery, just a blur of adrenaline and pure, unadulterated rage. I barely slept. I sat there in the dark, the phone clutched in my hand, reading and rereading, each message a fresh stab. By the time Sarah walked through the door the next afternoon, looking a little rumpled but feigning an air of tired professionalism, I was a coiled spring. Rough conference? I asked, my voice flat, almost robotic. She dropped her bag, stifled a yawn. Oh, you know. Back-to-back meetings, terrible hotel coffee. Just glad to be home, she said, giving me a quick, dismissive peck on the cheek. She didn't even look me in the eye. That's when the dam broke. Did you miss me, Sarah? Or did you miss Jay more? Her head snapped up. Her eyes went wide, then narrowed. The color drained from her face. What are you talking about? She hissed, immediately defensive. I didn't say anything. I just unlocked her phone, opened the text thread, and shoved it into her hand. Her gaze darted from the screen to me, back to the screen. She saw the handcuffs message at the top. Her entire body stiffened. It's a joke, honey. Someone at work, they're always messing around. You know how Tim is, always with the weird humor, she stammered, her voice rising an octave. Tim. There was no Tim in any of the messages. It's harmless, just a stupid prank. A prank? I barked, my voice cracking with the effort to stay calm. A prank with explicit photos? A prank that involves exploring your other office, and my place, and, babe. I pointed to the images on the screen, her face contorted in a mix of panic and disgust. She tried to snatch the phone back, but I held it firm. No, Sarah. Tell me about Jay. Tell me about the past 6 months. Tell me about the girls' nights and the work events and why you had to lie to me every single time you left this house. Her facade crumbled. For a split second, I saw raw fear. Then, it morphed into something colder, something I hadn't seen directed at me before. Contempt. Fine. So what if I did? What do you expect me to say? That I'm sorry? That I regret it? She spat, her voice dripping with venom. You've been so boring, Mark. So predictable. I needed excitement. I needed someone who actually appreciated me, who saw me for who I am. My world spun. Not an apology, not regret, but an accusation. I was boring. I was the reason. The audacity, the sheer, breathtaking arrogance of her. It was like she was reading from a script for a Lifetime movie, except she was the villain. And her casual cruelty, the way she just dismissed our entire life, our children, me, as if I was just an obstacle to her excitement, it was a blow even harder than the discovery of the affair itself. I just stood there, staring at this stranger, this monster who had been sleeping in my bed, raising my children, and laughing at me behind my back. My vision went red. It felt like I was watching myself from outside my own body, a horrifying, silent movie. That night was a blur of shouting and tears, mostly mine. She continued to deflect, to blame, to justify. You gained weight, Mark. You never listened to me. I felt neglected. Every accusation she threw at me was a projection of her own guilt, a twisted attempt to make me the villain in her sordid drama. I just stood there, letting her words wash over me, each one a fresh cut. It was like she was trying to rewrite our entire history, to erase the years of effort, the shared dreams, the sacrifices I'd made for our family. I felt like a complete fool. All those times I'd convinced myself I was paranoid, all the times I'd excused her behavior, all the emotional labor I'd put into trying to understand her stress, it was all for nothing. Less than nothing. It was for her to walk all over me, to make me a cuckold in my own home. The anger was immense, a roaring fire in my chest. But underneath it, a profound sadness settled in. It wasn't just about the betrayal, it was about the loss of the future I'd envisioned. The person I thought I knew, the life I thought we had, it was all a lie, a carefully constructed illusion. She wasn't the woman I married. Or maybe, she always was this woman, and I was just too blind, too trusting, too boring to see it. The pain was physical. A constant ache in my chest, a tightness in my throat. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every suspicious moment, every lie, every forced smile from her. Each memory was tainted, poisoned by this new, horrific context. I looked at our children, innocent and oblivious, and felt a wave of despair. How could I have been so wrong? How could she have been so cruel? The woman I loved was a stranger, and a brutal one at that. I remember thinking, in a moment of pure despair, that I just wanted it all to end. The pain, the anger, the constant replay of her betrayal. I wanted to disappear, to vanish from a life that had become a twisted mockery. It wasn't just my heart that was broken, it was my entire sense of reality. My trust in people, my belief in enduring love, it all shattered into a million pieces. The world felt colder, darker, and infinitely more dangerous. I was adrift in a sea of emotional wreckage, and I had no idea how to swim back to shore. The next few days were a living hell. She continued to act like I was the unreasonable one. She'd pack an overnight bag, go to stay with a friend, and then waltz back in the morning, acting as if nothing had happened, occasionally offering a half-hearted, manipulative, "I'm sorry you found out this way, but..." before launching into another tirade about my shortcomings. It was gaslighting on an epic scale, and I was too emotionally raw to fight back effectively. I just nodded, let her talk, and inside, a new kind of resolve was slowly hardening. I started doing research. Not on how to save a marriage, that ship had sailed and exploded, but on divorce, on asset division, on parental rights. I called a lawyer, discreetly, and laid out the whole ugly truth. He was grim-faced, but clear, I had a strong case. Her contempt, her lack of remorse, the explicit evidence, it all pointed to a straightforward dissolution. But a straightforward dissolution felt insufficient. It felt like she would just walk away, perhaps with a smaller settlement than she wanted, but still intact, still believing she was justified, still free to go find her excitement with Jay or whoever else. And the thought of her getting off that easily, after what she had put me through, after she had trampled all over my trust and dignity, was unbearable. That's when the ideas started forming. Dark, ugly ideas. Not physical violence, no, I would never stoop to that. But I wanted her to feel a fraction of the humiliation, the pain, the public shame that she had so casually inflicted on me. I wanted her to understand that actions have consequences, that lies unravel, and that some betrayals are unforgivable. My lawyer suggested mediation, a calm, rational approach. I nodded, agreed, outwardly playing the part of the reasonable, aggrieved husband. But in my head, a different plan was unfolding. A brutal, precise plan that would expose her for exactly who she was, not just to me, but to everyone who mattered in her life. This wasn't about winning a legal battle anymore. This was about justice. It was about making her pay a price beyond money. I wanted her to hurt the way I hurt, to feel that icy grip of despair and exposure. It felt cold, calculated, almost alien to who I thought I was, but the pain she inflicted had changed me. I was no longer the boring Mark. I was something else entirely now. You know, if you're finding this story gripping, or if you've ever been through something similar and want to connect with a community that understands, please consider subscribing to our channel and liking this video. Your support really helps us share these stories and build a stronger community. My plan started with meticulous data collection. While she was out on her work events, or with her friends, I went through everything. Her laptop, her old phone, the one she'd upgraded from and carelessly left in a drawer. I wasn't just looking for affair details anymore, I was looking for patterns, for connections, for any and every piece of information that painted the full picture of her deception. And what I found was even more disturbing than I could have imagined. It wasn't just Jay. There were others. Not a revolving door, but a definite pattern of emotional and sometimes physical intimacy with colleagues, with old friends, from social media, even with a guy from our gym. Each one a flirtation that escalated, sometimes to texts, sometimes to full-blown affairs, overlapping in a sickening tapestry of infidelity. Jay was just the latest and most egregious. She had been doing this for years, right under my nose. My whole marriage was a farce, built on a foundation of her endless lies and my unending stupidity. The rage simmered, but it was a cold, controlled rage now. It wasn't about exploding anymore, it was about precision. I saved everything. Screenshots, emails, deleted messages recovered from her devices. I built a dossier, a detailed timeline of her betrayals, cross-referenced with her lies to me about where she was, what she was doing. It was painstaking work, but each piece of evidence I unearthed solidified my resolve. This wasn't just about my hurt, this was about justice for my shattered reality. I also started collecting evidence of her financial misdeeds. Little things I'd dismissed before, unexplained charges on joint credit cards, business expenses that seemed a little too luxurious for a team lunch, gifts I thought she'd bought for me or the kids but had actually gone to her various friends. She wasn't just a cheater, she was a user, milking our joint resources to fund her double life. She was always bitching about money, about my lack of ambition, while secretly draining our accounts for her sordid escapades. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. The emotional impact was still there, a dull ache beneath the surface, but it was overshadowed by a grim determination. I was no longer the heartbroken, pathetic husband. I was an investigator, a prosecutor, building a case against the woman who had systematically dismantled my life. I felt a strange sense of detachment, like I was watching a movie about someone else. The boring Mark was gone. In his place was someone new, someone focused, someone utterly, chillingly resolved to make sure Sarah faced the full, brutal consequences of her actions. She wanted excitement. She was about to get it. The first part of my plan involved a very public, very humiliating exposure. Not to the whole world, not yet, but to the people who mattered most in Sarah's carefully constructed professional and social circles. I started with her workplace. Jay was a manager there, a well-respected, or so she thought, figure. I knew enough about corporate ethics policies to know that workplace affairs, especially when one party is in a position of even minor authority, are a huge no-no. I compiled a concise, damning package. Not just the handcuffs texts, but specific email exchanges from her work account, photos taken during work hours, and even a few audio snippets of phone calls where she talked about her exploits, dismissing her boring husband, and praising Jay. I made sure to include dates, times, and specific details that made it undeniable. I sent it anonymously, of course. Not to HR directly, but to a few key people I knew she both admired and despised at her company, people in senior leadership, and crucially, to a few of her direct reports who she frequently bitched about. I knew they'd appreciate the irony. I also included a copy of her detailed financial improprieties, framing it as an unethical use of company resources and abuse of her expense account. It was all true, but presented in a way that would cause maximum damage. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Within 2 days, I heard from a mutual friend, who was blissfully unaware of my involvement, that there was major drama at Sarah's office. Jay was suspended pending an investigation. Sarah was also put on immediate leave, ostensibly for personal reasons, but the whispers were already starting. The friend mentioned hearing something about inappropriate conduct and misuse of company funds. My plan was working beautifully. The best part? Sarah didn't connect it to me. She was too busy panicking, blaming Jay for being careless or some jealous colleague for a smear campaign. She even complained to me, tearfully, about the injustice of it all, how someone was out to get her. I offered comforting platitudes, nodding sympathetically, all the while a cold satisfaction spreading through me. She was starting to feel the walls close in, and she had no idea I was the one building them. The mask of the reasonable husband remained firmly in place. This was just the beginning. I needed her to truly understand the depth of the hole she had dug for herself. The next step involved her social circle. Sarah was obsessed with appearances, particularly with a tight-knit group of affluent women she considered her besties. These women loved to gossip, loved to judge, and held themselves up as paragons of suburban virtue. The thought of them seeing Sarah's true colors, of them realizing the woman they admired was actually a serial adulterer and a liar, filled me with a perverse delight. I created a burner email account and started sending anonymous tips. Not just vague accusations, but specific details. Ask Sarah about her business trip to Miami last November and who she really shared a suite with. Did you know Sarah's been telling Jay for months that her husband is terrible in bed? I included the names of her other affairs, details about where they met, how long they'd been going on. I meticulously wove together a narrative of her secret life, ensuring each tidbit was backed up by a piece of evidence that could easily be verified if someone was curious enough to dig a little. I even included a few of the tamer, less explicit photos, cropped to remove anything too legally problematic, but still enough to be incredibly damning. I targeted the most influential members of her group, the ones she was most desperate to impress. I knew they wouldn't keep quiet. They would start talking, the rumors would spread like wildfire, and Sarah's carefully curated image would be shredded. And that's exactly what happened. Within a week, her girls' nights stopped. Her phone, which was usually buzzing with social plans, fell silent. I'd subtly mention a mutual friend, and Sarah would turn cold, dismissive. Oh, her. She's such a two-faced bitch. I heard she's been talking trash about me. She was starting to feel the isolation, the shift in dynamics, but again, she blamed everyone but herself. She blamed jealousy, cattiness, anything to avoid confronting the fact that her lies were catching up to her. I watched, clinically, as her social life imploded. The woman who thrived on being the center of attention, the woman who needed constant validation, was slowly being ostracized. The occasional lunch invitation I'd overhear her trying to make on the phone was met with polite but firm excuses. She looked increasingly harried, confused, and desperate. The self-satisfied smirk she used to wear was replaced by a perpetual frown of paranoia. She was losing her carefully constructed world, piece by painful piece, and the satisfaction I felt was a cold, hard stone in my chest. It wasn't triumph yet, but it was certainly a beginning. While her professional and social worlds crumbled, I was also laying the groundwork for the most critical part, the divorce proceedings. My lawyer, still under the impression I was aiming for a clean divorce, was preparing the papers. I, on the other hand, was preparing a detailed, irrefutable narrative of her moral and financial failings that would leave her utterly exposed in court. I continued to gather evidence of her financial abuse. Not just the company expense fraud, but also personal spending. Designer bags, lavish dinners, weekend getaways, all paid for from our joint accounts, often coinciding with her rendezvous with Jay or her other paramours. I meticulously documented every single charge, every withdrawal, linking it back to specific dates and times when she was supposedly at a work conference or girls' night. My goal wasn't just to prove infidelity, it was to prove a pattern of deceit, manipulation, and selfish financial exploitation that directly impacted our marital assets. I wanted to demonstrate to the judge that she had actively squandered marital funds on her affairs, not just for personal enjoyment, but for a deliberate, years-long betrayal of our marriage. This wasn't about getting more money from her, it was about ensuring she got less, and that every penny she spent on her illicit activities was accounted for and used against her. When the divorce papers were finally served, Sarah was in a state of bewildered rage. She stormed into the house, screaming at me, accusing me of being vindictive, of trying to ruin her life. "You think you can just take everything from me, Mark? You think you can throw me out on the street?" She shrieked, her face mottled with fury. I looked at her, truly looked at her, and felt nothing but a cold, hard resolve. "No, Sarah," I said calmly, my voice flat. "You ruined your own life. I'm just making sure the record is straight." She scoffed, "You have nothing. I'm the one with the career, the reputation. Did you forget your phone again, Sarah?" I asked, a faint, chilling smile touching my lips. "Because I didn't. And neither did your employer. Or your friends. And soon, the court will have a very clear picture of just how much of a reputation you truly have." The color drained from her face again. She finally started to connect the dots. The workplace drama, the sudden silence from her friends, the detailed financial allegations in the divorce papers. A dawning horror spread across her features. She looked at me, really looked at me, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. It was no longer just anger or contempt, it was a realization that she was facing an opponent she had completely underestimated. This was the moment I had been waiting for. This was the moment she understood that the boring Mark was gone, replaced by someone who was coming for everything she held dear. By the way, if you're finding this story compelling and want to see how this brutal revenge unfolds, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a like. It helps a lot and keeps these true stories coming. The days leading up to the initial divorce hearing were tense. Sarah alternated between aggressive threats and tearful attempts at manipulation. She tried to frame me as a monster, a controlling husband who was just upset she had finally found herself. She even tried to invoke the children, weeping about how I was destroying their family, completely ignoring the fact that she had detonated it years ago. I remained impassive. Her theatrics had no effect on me anymore. I had crossed a threshold where her lies and crocodile tears were just noise. My lawyer, seeing my quiet determination, was impressed. He didn't know the full extent of my prep work, but he knew I was an excellent client, providing clear, concise, and damning evidence at every turn. At the first hearing, Sarah's lawyer presented her version of events: a mutually unhappy marriage, an emotionally distant husband, a woman who simply drifted apart and sought comfort elsewhere. Her lawyer even tried to paint me as financially controlling, which was beyond ironic given my dossier. Then it was my lawyer's turn. He didn't waste time. He presented the evidence I'd painstakingly collected. The workplace emails and messages, highlighting Jay and the explicit nature of their relationship, proving an affair that directly violated her company's code of conduct. The detailed financial breakdown of her illicit spending, carefully categorizing each charge as non-marital and affair-related. He showed the court screenshots of her texts with other men, demonstrating a pattern of serial infidelity that spanned years, not just a drifted-apart scenario. The judge, initially looking bored, grew increasingly stern. Sarah's face, which had started with an air of confident indignation, slowly turned ashen. She kept trying to interrupt, to object, but her lawyer kept pulling her back, whispering furiously. She saw the stack of evidence, the meticulously organized folders, each tabbed and annotated, each one a nail in her coffin. Her career, her reputation, her financial stability, it was all being systematically disassembled right in front of her. The judge called a recess, advising both parties to consider settlement, but his tone was clear: Sarah was in a very, very weak position. As we left the courtroom, her lawyer looked utterly defeated. Sarah, however, was in a full-blown panic. "You bastard! You absolute bastard," she screamed at me in the hallway, drawing stares from other people. "You collected all of this? You set me up." I just looked at her, my gaze cold and unwavering. "No, Sarah," I said, my voice barely a whisper, but carrying more weight than any shout. "You set yourself up. I just made sure everyone saw it." She crumpled against the wall, sobbing, truly broken for the first time. Not for the damage she'd done to me, but for the damage I was now inflicting on her. It was a hollow victory, a dark satisfaction, but a satisfaction nonetheless. The brutal revenge was reaching its zenith. The settlement discussions that followed were brutal, but for me, they were almost cathartic. Sarah's lawyer, having seen the overwhelming evidence against her, advised her to concede to most of my demands. She tried to fight, of course, to cling to some semblance of her former life, but with every argument, my lawyer just pulled out another damning piece of evidence, another meticulously documented lie. She lost her job. The company, facing potential lawsuits from Jay, who was fired, and a PR nightmare, quietly let her go. Her social circle had completely abandoned her, the gossip cementing her status as a pariah. And financially, she was ruined. The judge ruled that a significant portion of the marital assets had been squandered on her affairs and that she would bear the brunt of the financial hit. She would get enough to be stable, but nowhere near the comfortable life she was accustomed to. She would also pay a substantial portion of my legal fees. The final agreement was signed, and I felt an emptiness. A strange, quiet void where the rage and the pain used to be. The revenge was complete. She had lost everything she valued: her reputation, her career, her financial security, and her carefully constructed facade of respectability. She was left with the wreckage of her own making, truly alone and exposed. Standing there, after the papers were signed, I looked at her one last time. Her face was gaunt, her eyes hollow, the vibrant, ambitious woman I married completely gone. In her place was a broken, defeated shell. There was no triumph in my heart, no joyous celebration. Just a profound, unsettling silence. The emotional journey had been long and torturous. From the initial shock and gut-wrenching pain, through the searing anger, to this cold, calculated quest for vengeance. I had transformed from the naive, trusting husband into a relentless architect of her downfall. And in doing so, I had lost a part of myself too. The man who could love unconditionally, who could trust without question, he was gone, replaced by someone scarred and hardened. The brutal revenge had been successful, but it had come at a heavy cost. The silence was deafening, the victory, hollow. I walked out of that office a free man, but also a profoundly changed one, carrying the invisible wounds of a war I never asked to fight. Life after the divorce has been an adjustment. The kids are surprisingly resilient. They see their mom less, and when they do, she's often withdrawn or irritable. They've picked up on the tension, of course, but I've tried my best to shield them from the ugliness, to maintain a sense of stability and love. They're my priority now, my anchor. The house feels different. Cleaner, somehow. Less stifling. The air no longer thick with unspoken lies and hidden betrayals. I've started redecorating, slowly, painting over the colors she chose, replacing the furniture we picked out together. It's a slow process of reclaiming my space, turning it back into a home that feels like mine, not ours. Emotionally, I'm still healing. The anger has mostly dissipated, replaced by a lingering sadness and a deep-seated caution. Trust is a broken mirror, reflecting distorted images. I find myself analyzing every interaction, every casual comment, searching for hidden motives, for the subtle tells of deceit. It's exhausting, and I know it's something I need to work through. I've started therapy, something I never thought I'd do, and it's helping me untangle the knots of resentment and bitterness that still reside within me. It's a slow, painful process of rebuilding my own self-worth, reminding myself that her betrayal wasn't a reflection of my value, but of her character. I've had a few tentative dates, but nothing serious. The idea of letting someone in again, of being vulnerable, feels terrifying. The scars are still too fresh, the memory of her cruelty too vivid. I'm not ready to risk that kind of heartbreak again. Maybe one day. My friends have been amazing. They rallied around me, offering support, a shoulder to cry on, or just a distraction. They saw the transformation from the broken man to the resolved one, and they understood. They never judged the depths of my revenge, understanding that sometimes, people need to fight back in their own way to regain their dignity. The brutal revenge I enacted gave me a strange, dark sense of closure, a feeling that I had regained some control in a situation where I felt utterly powerless. It was ugly, it was painful, and it changed me in ways I'm still trying to understand. But I don't regret it. I regret that I was ever put in that position, but I don't regret fighting back. It felt like a necessary act of self-preservation, a way to reclaim my narrative from a woman who had tried to erase it with her lies. It showed me that even the boring can become formidable when pushed too far. Looking back, the signs were all there. I just chose not to see them, or rather, I rationalized them away because I loved her, or thought I did. My biggest regret isn't the revenge, it's the years I spent ignoring my gut, making excuses for her, and sacrificing my own peace of mind for a mirage of a marriage. If I could offer advice to anyone finding themselves in a similar hell, it would be this: trust your gut. That nagging feeling, that knot in your stomach, those seemingly irrational fears, they're usually telling you something important. Don't let love, or fear, or the desire for a perfect life blind you to what's right in front of your face. If someone is consistently making you feel uneasy, defensive, or like you're going crazy, there's usually a reason. Secondly, don't be afraid to dig. If something feels off, investigate. Don't be too trusting or too respectful of privacy when your fundamental security and well-being are at stake. Sometimes, you have to break a boundary to find the truth, and the truth, no matter how ugly, is always better than living a lie. Third, prepare. If you find out the unthinkable, don't confront immediately. That's what I did initially, and it just led to gaslighting and more pain. Gather your evidence, understand your legal rights, and build your case. Think strategically, not emotionally. It might feel cold, but it's the only way to protect yourself from further harm. They've already shown you they don't play fair. Finally, understand that revenge, even a brutal one, isn't a cure-all. It can provide a temporary satisfaction, a sense of justice, but it doesn't erase the pain or bring back the person you once were. It's a part of the process, maybe even a necessary one for some, but the real healing comes from within, from rebuilding your life on your terms, and finding a way to trust yourself again. It's a long road. But I'm walking it, one step at a time. The boring mark might have been destroyed, but the new one is stronger, wiser, and will never be taken for granted again. This isn't just a story about revenge, it's a story about survival, and about finding your power again after someone tried to strip it all away. The kids are my biggest focus now, and surprisingly, being a single dad has brought us closer. We have our routines, our inside jokes, and a sense of calm that was sorely missing before. I make sure to talk to them about feelings, about honesty, and about what a healthy relationship looks like, without explicitly badmouthing their mother. It's a delicate balance, but crucial. I want them to grow up with a clear understanding of respect and integrity, qualities their mother so clearly lacked. I've also started exploring hobbies I put on the back burner for years. Hiking, something I loved to do in college, has become my new therapy. Being out in nature, away from the constant noise of the city and the echoing memories of my past, helps me clear my head. It's where I process, where I reflect, and where I slowly, steadily, feel bits of my old self returning. The boring Mark loved the quiet, and now the new Mark cherishes it, but for very different reasons. It's a peace I've earned. Sarah, on the other hand, is a ghost. I hear snippets through the grapevine. She's struggled to find stable employment, her financial situation is precarious, and she's moved out of the area, unable to face the judgment and the whispers. Her relationship with Jay predictably imploded once the consequences hit. He apparently blamed her for ruining his career. Oh, the irony. They both got a taste of their own medicine, though I doubt she sees it that way. She probably still believes she's the victim of a jealous husband and a cruel world. Sometimes, a flicker of the old anger surfaces when I think about how easily she dismissed our life, how she destroyed everything with such casual indifference. But mostly, it's replaced by a profound sense of indifference. She no longer has any power over me, and that, more than any specific act of revenge, is the ultimate freedom. I'm still single, still cautious. But the fear is slowly giving way to a quiet hope. Hope that I can, one day, find genuine connection again, with someone who values honesty and commitment. I know now what I won't tolerate, what red flags to look for, and most importantly, what I deserve. This experience, brutal as it was, has forced me to redefine myself, to understand my own strength. It's a journey, not a destination, but I'm finally moving forward, leaving the wreckage behind. The biggest takeaway for me has been the stark realization that appearances can be deceiving, and that the person you think you know best can harbor a complete stranger within them. It's a painful lesson, but an important one. I used to think I was a good judge of character, especially when it came to the woman I chose to build a life with. Sarah shattered that illusion. Now, I approach relationships, even friendships, with a healthier skepticism. It's not cynicism, not exactly. It's more like a protective layer, an understanding that people are complex, and their true selves might not always be immediately apparent. I listen more, observe more, and don't take things at face value as readily as I once did. This isn't just about avoiding another betrayal, it's about being more grounded in reality. I'm also learning to forgive myself. For being naive, for being blind, for clinging to a false narrative for so long. The self-blame was almost as destructive as her betrayal, and letting go of that guilt has been a huge part of my therapy. It wasn't my fault she chose to cheat. It wasn't my fault she lied. Those were her choices, and I am not responsible for them. The journey of healing is ongoing. There are still days when a song, a smell, or a passing comment can trigger a flash of the old pain, a memory of what was lost. But those moments are fewer and farther between. They pass, and I come back to the present, to my kids, to my reclaimed life. I'm also slowly building a support network outside of my immediate friends. A men's group focused on divorce recovery, where I can share my experiences and listen to others. It's validating to know I'm not alone, that many men have walked a similar path of betrayal and rage, and that healing is possible. The brutal revenge I pursued was a necessary catharsis for me, a way to reclaim my power when I felt utterly helpless. It was an act of extreme self-preservation. But the true act of strength, I'm learning, isn't in inflicting pain, but in choosing to heal, to rebuild, and to move forward with integrity. It's about finding peace, not just vengeance. And that peace, I'm finding, is far more powerful and enduring than any momentary satisfaction of seeing someone else suffer. It's a peace I'm finally beginning to feel.